Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm Daniel. I'm the founder of Startup CPG. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And I'm really excited today that we are tackling one of the most asked about questions in our Startup CPG Slack, which is how do I crush it in New York City? If you look around the US, there are a couple markets that are just the biggest in terms of volume that are super influential, and New York is one of those. And it's also one that I think is really hard to tackle. Me as a brand, I was interested in doing it. We even hired kind of a local team and tried to get into a bunch of doors, and they kind of got us in, and then none of those doors ever reordered, and we just didn't really make a full effort at it, and thus it was a waste of an investment for us. I also have talked to other people who like maybe paid some kind of retainer but then didn't really go for it full on, and so they just wasted that retainer also. So I'm really excited that we have got some of the people who know New York the best here, who have done it themselves, proved it out. They live and breathe New York, and we are just going to be talking all about New York today. So, first, I just want to really thank the team at SimplyDepo for helping us put this on. SimplyDepo, which is just getting a lot of really good traction and has some incredible stuff inside of their platform. Maybe SimplyDepo team, do you mind maybe giving everybody just a quick, I know we'll talk about it at the end, but a quick preview about what SimplyDepo is?
Yeah, for sure, Daniel. Thanks for hosting this amazing event. My name is Ivan. I'm the founder and CEO of SimplyDepo. It's a retail execution platform and field sales tools for brands. I'm also a co-founder of G&GR Labs. I initially built the platform to help my own brand grow and scale in New York City. This is where we have started. I'm very excited to have some of our users here with us and share their experiences. So yeah, that's pretty much a little overview. Lisa, if you want to add something to that, Lisa's also with the SimplyDepo team on the marketing side.
Yeah, I'm just super happy that our customers are loyal to us and agree to share their experience with the audience, with the startup CPG community. I'm super happy this is happening, and I have seen the presentations. There is an amazing content, so I'm super excited for it.
Buckle up, everybody. It's about to get real. And yeah, if you haven't, so Ivan was mentioning he's the co-founder of a brand called Ginger. You've seen it. GNGR. It has the big like Swiss cross thing on it. Very healthy shot. They're everywhere in New York. And so he was saying they built this software because they were trying to solve the problem that they had, which is how do you actually like self-distribute in New York and actually plan and track and, you know, do all the orders and all of that stuff. So very, very cool stuff. Anyone who's really trying to get serious stuff done in New York, it would be good to give them a shout. So with that, I want to move over and introduce two of our speakers today. So Brian and Mac, thank you guys so much for joining us. Like we got real New York people here. That's how it should be. So I will pass to you guys to kick off with some introductions.
Great. Thanks, Daniel. And thanks, Ivan and Lisa. Brian Burkhart, owner of Doers Merchandising. We've been doing Doers started just about 3 years ago. But I'm coming in from with experience, about 25 years of experience with startups in the New York metro market, specifically New York City. I helped some iconic brands in the beginning, in the early stages, like Red Bull, Vita Coco, and by as recently as Flow. But you know, from account one, you know, want to say. But you know, all basically we helped with building the team, building out the market expansion and distribution. So really happy to be here, and it's an honor. Thank you, guys.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Brian, for the intro, and thanks, Daniel, for setting this up, and SimplyDepo for asking me to join along in my story. But yeah, I'm Mac Tricky. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Brooklyn Best, or lower sugar iced tea and lemonade, founded in early 2021. As our name suggests, we are a local New York City brand. Product is made here, distributed here. So we started in our backyard, which is Brooklyn and Manhattan and New York City in general. So excited to share my 2 cents on the journey of building a brand in New York City. Excited to be here.
Great to have you. Yeah, and Brooklyn's Best is like everywhere, so they definitely walk the walk here. Should we go to the next slide?
Next slide. I think I'm up, right? So We all ready? Okay, so we want to start. We want to start a platform in New York City. We want to start selling in New York City. We got the brand, we got the opportunity. Now we have to hit the market. And like Daniel said, everybody's like, how do we get started? And really, New York is a huge place. It's a huge, tremendous opportunity. So you really got to identify who your customer base is and where your customer base is in the city. You have a lot, tremendous landscape to do that. And you want to find out what account type you're going for, when you're launching New York City. Typically we're starting in the independent channel, with a lot of startups, but some startups do have some test authorizations, but again, in the channels.
You get a little freeze from Brian there.
Oh, am I good now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
We're back, right?
Yep.
Am I good, guys?
Yeah, I can hear you, Brian.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay, sorry. All right, so you want to secure your distribution model. Are we going broadline, or are we going DSD traditionally, or are we doing our self-distribution? These are all the things we have to decide. Once we have that decided and we lock that up, we need feet on the street, right? Who's your field support? Are we going with a brand area sales manager? Are we utilizing a third-party merchandising company or account opener? Are we leveraging our brokers? So all of that, we have to have some kind of support in those fashions. And a lot of times we'll bring on those brand area sales managers, because they're going to be aligned with the objectives and the strategies more than your third parties in a lot of cases. But the essential tools that you really need to get this started, you want to have a platform. SimplyDepo is the perfect place to track and get measurables for sales and execution for within store. But you also need to get started. You're going to have some kind of a sample program. You got to, if you have a beverage, you got to get that liquid to lips, get impulse and trial. But you have to educate your customer. They're going to be your best salespeople in the store. So educating them on your product, what you're doing, how you start it. And that's a pitch book. You got to have the pitch book, right? You got to have your sell sheets. You have to have your UPCs, all the products that you carry. And then you want to have your POS, and POS comes in all different forms. POS comes in shippers, swag, stickers, danglers, whatever, but you have to have something. You want to have a lead behind. You want your branding within the store and in the market that you're focusing on. So you can create, what is that? Where can I get it? Next slide, Lisa. So these are your New York City boroughs. There's 8.8 million people in New York City. 3 of the boroughs, Brooklyn itself could be its own state. Manhattan with 1.6 million people, it's high cost of living, high compensations, and then you have a diverse populated market, but you have an abundance of independents and chains and what have you. Brooklyn, the same thing, trendy, most populated in Queens. You have the 2 largest airports in Queens, but tremendous opportunity. And again, you have the world is your oyster in New York City, and it's an amazing place to start a brand. But you really need to identify the market, because you don't want to be going to a market that you're not selling well in. You really want to over-index in the areas that you can sell abundance of volume and then get scalability as you grow. Next slide, Lisa. So there's several different distributor types in New York City. A lot of your natural channels will go with your broadliners, your KHEs, your UNFIs, your PFGs and what have you. Those are, smaller volume brands possibly, or brands just starting, but maybe need to be cold, or it's a food item. It's a great strategy to go broadliner. But if you have a beverage, you want to look at your local and your national distributors, for New York City. And, you have some big players in New York City. You have Big Geyser, probably, one of your biggest distributors in New York City. KDP, which is not only a local, but a national distribution. And you have Manhattan Beer and what have you. But most commonly, self-distribution model is where we launch, you know, and this is where we can go into our independent channel fast. We can get into different markets in a quicker fashion, and we can open up a tremendous amount of accounts in a small amount of time. But those are 3 different models that you can go with.
Brian, I just want to ask you a question. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I ran a beverage company. I was able to use KeHE and UNFI to get to some of the chains that I know people are pretty interested in. So I was able to get to Citarella and Fairway, Gourmet Garage, some of the others. Is that like, can you hit a lot with KeHE and UNFI? Are there some, like I think Key Foods, it seemed like they weren't really going to work with them when I was talking to them. I don't know if that's.
Yeah, I mean, you're on point with that, but when you get into like the key food and independent groceries, you're probably it's gonna be very slim pickings when it comes to the UNFI. And if they are unified, it's more than likely going to be, you know, you're going to have minimums and you're going to be chasing a lot of cases at times. So it really depends what kind of a product you have to go to that direct model, you know. So,
Cool.
you know, a lot of different, you know, different courses for different horses, I guess you want to call it, right? But yeah, it's really, you got to find what fits your brand the best, you know. So, anything else, Dan? Next slide, Lisa?
No, maybe, yeah, I think maybe just the other thing I'll mention is like, you know, there are some companies out there that'll offer new brands like, hey, you want to be in New York? Great. Like, here's give me a big retainer, and then we will also take care of the distribution into some of those. Are those those are typically DSDs that are doing that?
Smaller operators, yeah. You know, they might hit specific markets, just like, you know, the Brooklyn market, some parts of Manhattan. You might have some Korean distributors that might hit some Korean markets, you know, with some other accounts involved in that. But it's really, you're kind of in a hole where they go, you know, and the expansions are slim in a lot of cases. So,
okay, thanks.
Yeah, the models. But, you know, when you're looking at your New York City distributors and when you're in the local and your nationals, these guys specialize in all different branding, you know, anywhere from beer to healthy beverages. You know, they're going to get cold products and your non-alcoholic. They're all routed, you know, they're all filled with different layers of district managers, key account managers, merchandisers, you know, pre-sellers, and, you know, some go-to-market strategies again. You know, you're leveraging your brokers and your merchandising companies. But I think the most important thing, you know, all these different types of distribution models, tracking and measuring is most important because of the follow-up that you do. If you're putting in the time to go to these accounts and open up the accounts, the follow-up, you know, it can't be a one and done. You know, you have to care more about your brand than the store owner and your distributors, because you have to, you know, you have to make sure you keep eyes on what's going on. So the follow-up is critical, and you can hold your distribution network accountable as well. Next slide, Lisa. So our best practices in New York City, you know, go-to-market strategy, you know, partner with a broker, third-party merchandising company. You know, you want to leverage, you know, blitzes and, you know, for your simple growth. You know, we want to go from 50 doors to 100 doors. How do we do that? You know, you got to brand engage. You know, your brand.
What's a sales blitz?
Sales blitz is where you get a group of people together and you attack a market for opening up new accounts. I mean, blitz could be a number of things. It could be opening up new accounts. It could be driving volume. It could be putting up POS. It could just be brand education, store by store. So there's a lot of different strategies for blitzes. But in most cases, it's to drive new business and volume. But, you know, with that, you have to have your brand engagement. You have to educate retailers about your product. There are a lot of products out there. It's a lot of similarities, but what makes your product stand out best from the rest? And it's just educating those retailers, your DSD teams, your sales teams. You got to join those branch meetings when they do have them, because you're out of sight, you're out of mind. You know, you have to be visible. You know, you're going to be in the trenches along with them. Tracking and measuring again with SimplyDepo, holding those distributors accountable, do the check-ins. You know, they're a partner, they got skin in the game as well as you do. And that's where it just goes into continuously follow up with your teams and continue to plan. You know, work with the reps in the field. I think work withs are so impactful when you're starting together, because it's, you know, you're teaching that one person about you, what you're doing, what the initiatives are, and you want them to carry that on when you leave. You know, so work withs are very, very important. Next slide, Lisa. So in New York City, there's over 20,000 accounts in New York City, all broken out by different boroughs. Manhattan with tremendous amount of independence, along with Brooklyn, but there's also key retailers in these markets. But you know, again, the world is your oyster in Manhattan, specifically in independent, and with your strategy, you could really build up a great account base and get recognized by the bigger players out there. You know, that's in the fashion of distribution networks, investors, chains, you know, what have you. So it's definitely an opportunity to go versus other markets to launch. I think New York City is the breeding place of most brands today, and you just really have to have a great strategy to attack those areas, because, you know, if you look at different markets, it's independent channels is huge. So you know, it's just broken out between drug and your grocery and independent grocery. It's just it's crazy amounts of different cultures and everything that you could to expand your business. So next slide, Lisa.
So Brian, I have a question.
Yes,
if a new brand wants to break into the New York market, which borough would you suggest for them to kind of start? Just because they're all so different, right? And there's just so many opportunities in each. So what would you suggest, and what would be the best starting point for a brand?
Well, I mean, you know, if you're in Manhattan, a lot of people will start in your typical areas. They want to be, you know, the Midtown, you know, financial district areas, you know, depending on if they're going in the on-premise channel for office or collegiate. Manhattan definitely, and I'd say Brooklyn as well. You know, a lot of brands start.
Yeah, I would say for us, the most successful kind of neighborhood was Brooklyn and Manhattan. This is where I think Manhattan has a lot of stores within like close proximity. So it's easier to visit a lot of stores, but there's some issues with parking and things like that, right? So it really depends if you're working with an independent distributor or you're kind of doing the self-distribution model, which is more difficult for a lot of brands, especially if they're not from New York, you know? So a lot of them would be working closely with some small to medium-sized independent distributor.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I mean, if you're doing a self-distribution model, I mean, you think about it, you're going to Manhattan, the cost of that, you know, could be high with, you know, your parking, you're parking a vehicle, your majority of the time on foot, you know, pre-selling and then delivering. So you know, it's definitely a different play, you know, in Manhattan in a lot of cases. So, you know, you gotta know your market and what you got to do out there. But yeah, I think Manhattan's a great place, but it's challenging, to say the least, you know.
Makes sense.
But on this slide that I have here, guys, is a case study, and just, you know, leave you with this. You know, it's a brand that I worked with, started with last year, and they, you know, very startup. You know, they did the same thing a lot of brands do, you know, with the self-distribution model, and they get some recognition, and they get that test at Target or something. You know, this was a Target authors test that this brand had, and they got probably like 300 locations, and a lot of them in the New York metro market, and they're struggling. You know, they had sell 5 units per week to stay on the shelf to win that authorization for full authorization, and they were struggling with 3 units on an average per week. And they hired us to go in there and ask us, you know, what we could do. And what we found was since it was going through the warehouse, it was a CGO ordering process. So once the product hits a certain number of units sold, it will trigger an order, product will come in. Problem was, it wasn't being audited correctly on the shelf. In a lot of cases, these products come in on pallets, two to three cases at a clip of your product, and they pull them out, they go to the shelf. So if you get a damage or a mispick or whatever it is, it's still going to show the number of product on that shelf, number of units on that shelf, even though it might not be there until it's audited. A lot of cases, it doesn't get audited frequently enough, which the brand suffers. So if you don't have feet in the street on there, you might lose an opportunity. So I highly suggest getting in there and getting touches on the brand. With this specific one, we found that there was an audit problem. We fixed the audit problem, adjusted the inventory on the shelf. We got a steady flow of product coming in. They had multiple deliveries coming in weekly. The following week, we were able to secure a secondary placement, which drove 29 units on an average per week by just getting a steady flow of product and a secondary placement. And we were able to do that in a good portion of those stores, which won them a national authorization down the road. So I would highly suggest, if you get these opportunities as you build, definitely, if you get a win like something like a target authorization with a test, definitely put eyes and feet in the street, making sure you win that secondary win of getting a national authorization. So
this is like Target the retailer, their warehouse.
Yeah,
okay,
Target,
cool. And
yeah.
I know you do merchandising. Where are you spending the majority of your time merchandising stuff? Like, are brands mainly, are they asking you mainly to spend time in New York, Targets and Whole Foods, those kind of places? Are you hitting a lot of the independents?
What we're doing is primarily, we're doing some, the New York business, we're doing primarily like a lot of Wakefern business, Stop and Shop business. We have brands that just get a simple authorization and they hire us for shop rights to build out because it's a co-op. So there's different groups. So we've had a lot of success in that channel, as well as like Publix, Wegmans. We got a lot of startups that get a Wegmans authorization and they need some support in stores.
Awesome. Thanks.
But that's all I have. I appreciate it. And thank you guys. And then Mac, you're up next, man.
All right. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian. I'll hop in here. Why not? Thank you, Daniel, for hosting and everything you do in the CPG community. It's definitely a grind to get involved and get your feet wet and get things going. So like, the couple events that I've been to and the networking is super important in all industries, but I feel like especially this industry. So this is really cool to be here, and maybe I'll see some of you guys out west next week as well. So thanks Ivan and the SimplyDepo team for hosting as well. We've been probably one of the earlier adopters of SimplyDepo in the New York City area. So it's cool to share my 2 cents here. But yeah, if you want to go to the first slide, I can just sort of hop right into it. So Brooklyn Best, just a little bit of background on us. We're an iced tea and lemonade company founded in 2021. Our idea was to remake the classics that we grew up drinking, sort of the glass bottle Snapple of the 90s and early 2000s, right? Which was such an iconic sort of staple at the time. It's sort of fallen off in a different direction. And we said, we want to recreate that just with lower sugar, organic ingredients, and aluminum recyclable packaging. So we started early 2021, sort of mid-pandemic era, and our idea was, okay, we're going to make a couple cases of iced tea and lemonade, start selling it. Sounds easy enough, right? We had no sort of experience in CPG. I think the number one advice we got when starting the brand was don't do it, right? But as an entrepreneur and a lot of entrepreneurs out there, you got to just kind of ignore the noise and follow your gut and keep going. So first production run, we got about maybe a pallet or 2 of each flavor. We had 3 flavors when we started up, And we were looking at all these cases, which was probably a couple hundred cases at this time. It was the most product I've ever seen in a confined space. And I looked at my co-founder and I said, what do we do now? You know, we have all this product. Where does it go? So my co-founder, well, one of the reasons we started, he has a bagel store in Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn. So we said, hey, we're going to start selling it out of the bagel store. And then from there, you know, us being sort of local to the area, we had a couple friends that, you know, one had a pizzeria, another had a deli, another had a couple bodegas that their family was involved in. So we said, hey, we're going to drive by, we're going to drop off some samples, and we're going to run this thing like a real small business. And so from there, we started making product and started selling cases. So it started with one account, went to 3, went to 5, went to 10. And Lisa, if you want to go to the next slide, we sort of took, as being a local brand, we sort of took that self-distribution model, again, not having much experience with the space. I didn't even know what DSD stood for at the time, right? We had no idea what we were doing, but we said, hey, we have this iced tea. We think it tastes pretty good. Let's just start selling it. So we got busy and we started hitting feet on the street. And I think this can be applied to any sort of local area that you're starting out in. But for us, it was our backyard. And again, sort of very bare bones in the beginning, loading up the truck with cases, going to the store, writing down in our notes app, you know, the delivery, writing up invoices on pieces of paper, and just getting the product out there. And so over time, you know, we started to develop a little bit of a cadence, a little bit of a method, and we start to see like the, sort of daily combat that is New York City retail landscape, right? So going into different stores, checking in, starting to develop your pitch. I came from a sales background, but this was sort of a new type of sales, if you will, right? Dealing with small business owners, dealing with bodega owners, dealing with grocery store independent managers. Everyone sort of has different personalities, but started getting things going and starting to develop those personal relationships, which I think really mattered. Lisa, if you can go to the next one. So again, sort of started from our perspective where we found the path of least resistance was actually not in grocery and large retailers, right? Was actually sort of the more on-premise cafes and food service establishments. We could walk into a deli, we could walk into a bagel store. Again, grocery stores have thousands of SKUs, they got a lot going on. So we found that going into these smaller spots was actually an easier pitch. We could sometimes even talk to the direct owner of the store, right? Sort of get to know them. Hey, why don't you take a few cans, try it out? We'll come back in a couple days and see where it goes from there.
And this is a screenshot from SimplyDepo, just so everybody knows, since I got to shout out our sponsor here. Like, you can go in and actually just select all the stores that you want to go and try to hit up, and then you can choose ones where you want to actually build a route as well. And they basically have all the locations in New York, and probably they'll let you get a look at all of those also if you reach out to them. I'm just going to put their contact info, their link tree here in the chat in case anybody wants to, and we'll talk about them again at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. No, perfect segue. And yeah, so I think from there, we were very bare bones in the beginning, as I mentioned, writing out like carbon copy invoices, tracking things on like pins on Google Maps. And that's when I started to become friendly with Ivan and also Namik, the co-founders at GNGR and also SimplyDepo. And they said, hey, you know, we're developing this app. Do you want to start to use it? We said, great. You know, we'd actually been using like another service prior to that, but it wasn't really doing the job. And maybe some of these other services were quoting us like, you know, huge amounts to like, you know, use their app, right? And this was perfect. So from there, we started to keep really good notes, right? So we can know, okay, we checked into this store on this day. You know, has it been a week? Has it been 2 weeks? Has it been 3 weeks? If you want to go to the next slide, Lisa. You know, we can start to keep track of these things. And I think from the brand side, right, more than the merchandiser side, free cases can really start to add up, right? And we need to be very cautious and mindful of the amount of free products. So if we're going into a store, right, and especially we're starting to maybe talk to, you know, independent grocery stores, you know, the main sort of question is, okay, this is cool. What's the deal, right? How many free cases do we get? and they're always going to push the deal. And it takes a little bit of finessing and takes a little bit of getting used to it, right? But you know, you're going to have to offer a deal at the end of the day, whether it's a free fill in the beginning or an ongoing deal. These things are important, but you also important to keep track of it, because the more free cases you give out, the more margin you're losing, right, on the top line from your production runs. So again, this was something that we had to really keep track of. And you know, they'll kind of try to smooth you too. They'll be like, oh, well, Geyser's giving me buy 10, get 10. Why can't we get 10 free cases from you? You're like, well, listen, and you sort of have the rebuttal and you start to work it out. But keeping track of the promotions is really important as well.
I did a podcast with Namik from Ginger, and I was like, hey, some people say, no, just you should give away a bunch of product. And like, because, you know, I think if you work with some kind of agency, yeah, if you say like, hey, here's tons of free products, can you get us placements in stores? The stores will be like, sure, I'll take the free stuff and sell it, and I'll never talk to you again. But like, sure, I can sell this stuff for free. And then they don't really care. He was saying like, yeah, it took him a while to realize you just don't give away product, at least like, you know, get them to pay 50% of it or something like that. Just to make sure that they're kind of bought in and be like, no, it's going to sell. We're going to support it, that kind of stuff. Mac, did you have to fight with a lot of people like, you know, bodega owners and stuff, just trying to get free cases?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of that. So, you know, any store will take in a free case of anything, right? Because it's a 100% margin markup for them, whatever you want to call it. They'll sell through it at some point, and then they'll be like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about, right? And you'll go back. But I think that's where sort of like the follow-up is important as well. So like sometimes you will have to give up maybe a free mixed case, right? Or crate or whatever it is that you're selling, right? But I think it's important to like keep track of that and then have the follow-up as well. So you can be like, hey, I gave you like 12 or 24 free cans last week. You know, I see that you're down to 2. Let's make an order and start to push on that direction as well. Because if you just give a free case and then you show up 2 months later, they're gonna be like, what the hell are you talking about? You know?
Yeah. I pretty much never heard from anyone that I ever did that with. So
yeah, totally. I know. And I'm with you. And I think that's where like the organization is important as well. And whether it's, you know, your internal team, if maybe you're hiring an ASM or district sales manager or area sales manager, right? You want to sort of be able to see the data of like, okay, either I'm checking into the store or one of our reps is checking into the store. When's the last time we've been there, and really keep track of it and what kind of deal. Lisa, if you want to go to the next slide.
And somebody asked in the chat, like, what about doing outreach over phone and, you know, stuff like that? My assumption is like, man, these guys, like, it'd be very hard to get them on the phone and for them to like care about anything. And they do want a deal on the product, right? To like get somebody to order product that they've never seen before. My guess is that's going to be pretty hard to do.
Yeah, phone. I don't even know if the phone's connected in a lot of these places, you know. But I gotta say, like, I will say Instagram DM for like the stores that do have Instagram, if you're able to find them. Sometimes you get some responses on there, especially if you have a brand page and you're like, hey, like this is my brand, like, can we drop off some samples? I do a lot of Instagram DMing, whether it's a bodega or a cafe or whatever. Sometimes but yeah, phone is tough, and email is also tough because everyone gets so many spam emails.
That is a pro tip. The Instagram one, I've been hearing that more and more from brands finding like, you know, Goods Mart or like Orchard, or there are a bunch of them where it seems like they just have somebody whose job it is to monitor the Instagram. So if you send them a message, they kind of have to respond to you. So there's a good one. Nice one, Mac.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mike, if you can maybe talk a little bit about, you have a very unique distribution model. You guys do self-distribution, and you also work with various different distributors. How do you manage all of this in one place?
We started out direct distribution only, and it got a little hectic. So at some point, going to Brian's point, we did started to work with some of the smaller DSDs in the New York City area. With those DSD partnerships, you are able to sort of you're going to give them margin, and obviously not everyone will have a man in the van, but they will deliver the product, or most of the time they deliver the product, and then they'll collect the money and sort of deal with the sort of issues that come up. But I think it is important on the flip side to have sort of a team as well, because a lot of these, distributors, they have an internal sales team. They will push the product, but again, you're new, they'll push it, but then maybe the next new thing will come in, or they'll only be pushing, sort of the staples that sell really well. So I think it is important to develop like either one internal person to start, or working with a merchandising company or third-party company that can help sort of push the brand. And yeah, I guess pitching, right? Just to get back into it, just comes with time, right? I think you just got to get in there, get the reps. Different people, you'll start to realize, different emotions for different people at different times of the day, right? Someone might be a little grumpy and tell you to get the F out of the store, things like that. Just can't take it personal. You just got to be like, okay, cool. I'll make the note. I'll come back next week, right? And sort of just a lot of reps. You're going to hear no probably 90% of the time, and just sort of keep pushing through it. Lisa, we can go to the next one as well.
So, and Mac, I think like for some brands, they may be thinking, hey, I want to start here in New York as my home. I'm going to kill it here and do what Mac did everywhere, self-distribution, other distribution, all that stuff. There are other brands who are like, I would like to get some distribution in New York. It's an important market, but I cannot fully commit all of my resources to doing it. Do you think it's a viable route for some brands just to try to hit the bigger chains? I was able to get distribution in Citarella, D'Agostino's, Graciti's, Fairway, Village, and some of the ShopRites, I think, just from the trade shows alone. Like I met them at the old Expo East. You can meet them at Fancy Foods New York. You're not going to crush New York and be available everywhere. The velocities are not going to be amazing, but you're going to get into those stores. They're going to provide some support to the DCs if you're in, the UNFI DC or KHE 27 or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a good point too. So yeah, if you're just looking to have like a presence in New York, I think a lot of these independents are definitely great options for you. They can be distributed via, KHE or UNFI, or even Chex is a Northeast sort of semi-broad line as well. They can help out with some things, sort of other regional dairy distributors too, and some things of that sort, which can get you into the ShopRite groups in New Jersey, even as Brian was saying. And then there's sort of local, you have the Uncle Giuseppe's, which is like in Westchester and Long Island in New Jersey. And then you have Citarella Market. And then in the city, you got the West Side Market, Brooklyn Fair, Dumbo Market, Urban Market, some of the key foods. So you can get some movement through there. I think it's just, those stores can be a little disorganized too, and you can get lost in the shuffle. So I think that's where it is important. Like if we're gonna commit resources and time and money, right? Like sending products to these distributors, like maybe there is an importance to having someone at least go into these stores every couple of weeks and check on the shelf. Because then you can just sometimes send product and it gets lost, and and then it's just sort of like a waste of sort of money, right? So I think it's like if you want to do it right, and go through there.
And Anna posted a really interesting comment in the chat here. She said, so they did the New at KHE program for DC 27, which is Eastern Maryland. New at KHE lets you open up a distributor, and then you can provide an intro deal like 50% off or whatever, which is expensive. And all these people can pull it during that 60-day window or whatever it is. She said of the 30 that took it in during the New at KHE discounted period, 5 to 7 continued reordering a year and a half later, and they were able to follow up with a bunch of them later and get them to reorder. But that actually sounds like okay to me. I mean, you get a bunch of people trying it. Some of them are just trying to get some free, cheap product, whatever. But I mean, to get actual permanent placement in New York stores is pretty nice, hopefully that lasts for a long time.
Absolutely. I think it's just a matter of like what your budget is, right? And I think a lot of distribution is kind of marketing as well, right? And like you're gonna lose a couple dollars here, a couple dollars there, but you can then, if as long as you can drive traffic to those locations as well. And I think that's where like social media helps, and be like, hey, we're available at fair way, right? And sort of push that as well.
And yes, validation, try to get some other ones. But if you can support the unified DC, then Whole Foods knows that. Obviously, a lot of people want to get in the Whole Foods locations. A couple other questions about distributors that are coming in. So checks, yeah, I know like the Fairway guys talk about checks a lot. Like even like, if they want to bring in a brand, they might push them to checks at some point. And then people have been asking about Rainforest as well, which honestly, I don't know a ton about, but a lot of people talk about them being like, oh, are they expensive, but are they really good? Do you guys have any opinions you want to share? Brian or any?
Yeah, so I mean, we are kind of on the Gene Jar side, we're currently working with Dora Naturals. They're very similar to Rainforest. Rainforest just has a bigger footprint, but the operations are very similar. So I think part of the success here, just to really have a full-time rep that's working along with them, because they're managing a lot of brands. They don't necessarily focus on one or two or either five brands. So you constantly need to visit the stores that have issues, resolve them on the spot, and work very closely with their team. This is part of our success, and we've been really doing it since day one, since we started working with our distributor. So I think as long as you really visit the stores, have history of everything that's happened in the store, what deals you gave them, and you can make smart decisions as you visit them again. And this is how you'll be able to kind of grow your customer base, your loyal customer base. And then at some point, once the stores get very familiar with your brand, they'll automatically reorder your product. But you need to first create a couple of those visits and a couple of those reorders yourself before it's going to go on automatic mode.
Okay, great. Thank you. Continue, Mac.
Yeah, no problem. And then I guess for like just my 2 cents on like incubation programs and sort of innovation sets, right? I think we need to like understand too that these things are expensive, right? And they might not always have the desired outcome. So I think just being very like targeted, and then also like if you are going to commit to it, really go in and provide the support, because you can spend all this money opening up KE DC and doing these things, and then if you don't really have like the push through, it can end up being expensive as well. So I think it's just like being like, okay, we're not going to try to do everything at once. Like let's do one thing at a time and really push on it when we do it as well. All right, cool. So yeah, I mean, just going back to the food service pitch, we found this to be a great fit, and I think this can be applied to like multiple regions all over the country, right? And helps with trial. So again, in a grocery store where we might be selling a couple cases a week, maybe of all SKUs, right? And here we're selling, up to 20 cases a week. So it can also be a, revenue stream as well if you get in, because again, in a grocery store, thousands of SKUs, maybe in a on-premise or food service or cafe, much limited SKUs, so more trial. Lisa, we can keep going as well. So this is a screenshot from SimplyDepo from George, who's our DSM here in New York City. We were just able to pull this real quick for this presentation. So this is us in the field in New York City, and I was kind of joking before, like this is like quintessential New York City cooler, right? There's like 6 or 7 brands, like all jumbled together, packed in tight into a set. Everything's mismatched, and it's just part of the game, right? So I think that's where following up and being on top of things is really important, because one of the bigger distributors, whether it's a beer distributor or whoever, will come in and they'll kind of push the stuff to the back and put their stuff in front, right? And that's just part of the game, right? Just fighting for shelf space. So I think this is important to be, because if we had waited, maybe another week, those cans are sold, they're on to the next brand, right? And you've kind of lost that shelf space. So again, providing like feet on the street, or at least like one pair of feet on the street, right, is important to just keep an eye on things, because things will get lost, and you want to be able to fulfill future orders as well. Another thing, a follow-up, right? Again, sort of a look into the portal and how we're doing things. So what the cool thing about SimplyDepo is for us is like we can place direct orders, right, which we will then sell to the store, and then we will also be able to place orders which will email a PDF to the distributor, right? So we can sort of keep track of both sides of it, and we'll say, hey, you know, this is a store that our DSD is servicing. They need an order. Let me just push the order through to the DSD, and whatever, you know, desired email address on the other side, you can put through the order and start sending orders to distributors, which the distributors is always appreciate, right? If you're sort of doing work for them, they love you even more. So this is also an added benefit of you know, keeping things organized and having that dedicated person or team on the street as well. So speaking of Cinderella, this was a great case study for us. You know, we were able to get authorization into 7 stores, 6 SKUs. I'm able to push some velocity through these doors. And then I'm able to take that data, right, and bring it to a larger chain, bring it to a Whole Foods for, you know, a local launch, or bring it to a Target for a local launch. And, you know, then you have some like concrete numbers of like, hey, yeah, I know this is like a cool, hip, innovative product, but also it's selling well, which is like really, really valuable to some of these larger buyers, right? And keep providing them updates as well, because they might not always take you on the first try, but oh, here's a new batch of sales data I was able to pull.
How'd you get the Just Salad account? That's amazing.
Yeah, so that's been another sort of push on the food service side. You know, it was through a friend of a friend that was working there, but also like LinkedIn, shout out LinkedIn. Super, you know, I just message a lot of people on LinkedIn, you know.
Yeah.
You just got to kind of shoot your shot, and most people will kind of read it and not reply, but you know, just put your PDF in there. Hey, this is my brand, would love to send you some samples. You never know what's going to happen. You know, food service has been great for us. There's also other distributors that sort of cater to offices as well, which has been an interesting angle for us as well. So there's all these sort of other things. People think it's only like Whole Foods or Sprouts or Central Market, right? These sort of like top tier natural accounts, but there's also alternative channels which will drive brand awareness and sort of build that in as well.
I like that. And I mean, I like both of those tactics, like hit everybody on LinkedIn. I'm very LinkedIn forward. And also, yeah, friend who works there. It's a great approach. I've gotten into like places like Google and Meta, because I was like, all right, who do I know? I know some people who work there. Like, hey, can you walk to the cafeteria and talk to the person there and ask them if they could bring me in? Because that email will go somewhere if it comes from an internal person. So good.
Yeah,
good
and you
job.
start getting with those distributors as well, and then they have other offices that they service, and you start to drive trial.
That's
Exactly.
how you do it. That's how you get the ball rolling.
Yep. Lisa, yeah, I can keep going. Oh yeah, and then just at the end here, quick note on like social media. You know, I think it's been really helpful for us to kind of dive into some more community events. So, you know, whether it's you know, there's a pop-up happening, right, or a flea market, or you know, like little things, right? You can come by, bring a cooler full of cans, hand out some ice cold drinks or whatever your sort of CPG product is. And then, hey, you want to post it on Instagram and tag us, right? Sort of these little silly things, but it does help drive community and sort of the user generated content as well. You know, people start posting it up, and people like tagging brands as well. It's sort of a thing. So just getting things out there, and then obviously hats and merch and swag, sort of whatever you can, you know, put out there. And then, yeah, you know, posting on Instagram, right? Or TikTok or whatever, you know, like a lot of the posts like maybe aren't going to hit, but then you get one post that does hit, right? And that's a whole other set of eyeballs that can get on the product as well. And then through sort of messaging on social media as well, you know, you can say, hey, we're available at this retailer, or we're available here, right? So, you know, everything's sort of driving, I would say, back to the store, right? Drive trial, taste tests, whatever you're sampling, right? And then how do we get them back to the store to try it, right? And whether it's at that pop-up where they tasted the lemonade, but if you're not on sale at the local, you know, supermarket, people aren't going to recognize it and purchase it. So I think it's like goes hand in hand with each other.
So Mac, if you get it, let's say you get into your first, like one independent store or one chain, like how would you really drive velocity? Like without having all of the momentum you've built up at this point. You're a new brand. Hey, I'm in one independent, or I just got into Citarella. What would you really do to, like, if you don't have all this budget, to really try to drive in those areas? You'd immediately go to demos, or you try to get promos going?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, so we're not sold on the West Coast right now. So I would think like if we were to launch like in LA, yeah, I would try to like maybe work with an independent grocery store and then maybe reach out for like, I think obviously you have the traditional demos and point of sale, right? But I think there's also sort of the angle of let's hit up some local places to pop up, right, and hand out cans. I think there's like alternative angles as well, like whether it's going to, like I said, like a coffee shop, or like on a Sunday outside handing out cans, like anything to sort of drive trial and then have that sort of directed to the store to do velocity, to drive velocity, and whether that's in-store demo or maybe like in that neighborhood, sort of
Yeah.
building out from there as well.
Maybe just keeping in mind like point of sale. Like it doesn't help to drive awareness if people aren't near the store or can't go into the store and buy it. Like, so
Yeah.
that kind of like field marketing stuff, very important to like really be available near them.
Yeah. Yeah. And then on the flip side, you don't want to be for sale somewhere that you're not really driving awareness to. So I think it's just, if we're going to commit to like opening Citarella, for example, let's try to drive traffic in that area.
Yeah, very good.
And then, yeah, this was just some slides like average traction, good traction, viral, like different sort of ways that you can sort of build eyeballs on the product as well. And then maybe you're for sale on Amazon if that's something that is cost effective for you, and building out e-com, and then also having that local angle as well. And I think that's it. Right, Lisa? Yeah. And so again, sort of building off those banners. Again, this was sort of like the local build out that we did here in the New York City area. So again, you have your, like Daniel's mentioning, your Fairways, your Citarellas, Union Markets, ShopRights, maybe some on-premise, and then sort of using that as a launch pad to go out from there.
These are amazing stores. I also, like, for anyone who's in New York, get ready for some doozy events from us. On the Sunday when Fancy Food starts, we're going to be doing an event with Fairway in one of their stores. It's going to be ridiculous, amazing. We also, I think we'll get something done hopefully with Happier Grocery as well. That's a really great store. If you haven't been in there yet, we got to do one already at Gourmet Garage, and we'll be trying to do events that bring you guys together with the buyers as much as possible. That's what we do. And then somebody had asked in the chat about Fancy Foods New York. Just so everyone knows, applications for our section at Fancy Foods are open. You can find that in the overall Slack. The show, Fancy Foods New York, is a good show. If you want to try to find New York buyers, they are there at that show. And it's a good show, and our section is the best place to be at that show because we get all the buyers coming through, taking meetings with us, all the good stuff.
Yeah, I gotta echo that. It was really good last year, and like all the big buyers that I saw at Expo West were also at Fancy Foods East. So, it's definitely worth it. It's, I think, not as expensive of a ticket, so it's a great show, and it's obviously right in New York City.
Yes. Okay, so maybe we'll try to hit a couple questions, and then I'm just gonna like, there's so many that have come in. I'm sorry because we have a couple hundred people on here. We're not gonna get to all of them, but somebody asked about like how much sampling should you plan to do. It's expensive, right? It's going to cost you $200 a demo. It's going to get you, depends on the store, like, I don't know, you might only get 5 purchases of a unit or 10. I would just try to be really strategic and understand times of day and the store location. Like, I've done some in like a Gristedes or something that was like empty, and done some others at the right time of day in a better store where I actually want to build. So especially if you have limited budget, I recommend just like pick the right chain and try to, or like area radius, and try to start demoing there. Somebody asked if you could even try to hit a 3PL, like shipping to stores. I have not seen that done. Like, I don't know how you get them to actually place the orders for most of the New York type stores that I've seen. How do you determine case size? I recommend trying to go smaller because people ask for free cases. They don't ask what the case size is when they do that. And also, to hit a DC like KE27, they care about how many case cases you're turning. They don't really look at the number of units in a case. So I like smaller cases, almost as small as possible for that, for both of those reasons. I don't see anyone disagreeing with me on the panel, so I'm just going to keep going. I think we hit most of these. And then in terms of working with brokers, I had worked with a national broker. They had like one person who could kind of hit some New York stores. They did not really know a lot about it. And then, yeah, there are like some people you can pay on the ground to do stuff, but like, yeah, I don't know. Anyone have an opinion on like if you can hire somebody to do a good job for you getting into these?
Yeah, so I think with the brokers, it's very tricky. We did try to work with several different brokers and did not get a lot of results. So you have to really be careful who you're selecting as your partner to work with. Yeah, I think that's just our experience that we had with a lot of the brokers that we work.
And then I think that's most of the, sorry, I know we're missing some of these, but that I think is most of the ones that we're going to get to now. Ivan, do you want to just wrap up on anything around SimplyDepo? Like, I don't know if you want to tell people about it, or even if you wanted like show it to people for a second, just so they could see what the actual tool looks like.
Yeah, so I won't be able to show it, but if anyone is interested, to schedule a demo, we're happy to share some of our experience, how we've been using it for G&GR Labs to kind of grow and scale in New York. We are happy to share some of the tips we've been using to manage our distributor in New York. We were able to optimize everything in a way where it's very efficient, and we're only visiting the stores that need to be visited. So we're just not visiting every store that's on the street, but we're really trying to optimize everything to really visit the stores that have issues and be able to resolve them and move on. So if anyone's interested, you can schedule a demo, and one of our team members will be able to kind of share the experience that we've had and how we were able to optimize everything.
And there's also, I think there's a giveaway also. There's like a 2-month free.
Yeah, Lisa, if you want to jump in on the giveaway. So I could just say basically we are giving away 2-month free for any member that's interested. And we'll also do a specialized onboarding and free training for your team. Again, just kind of saying that the same thing. We'll just share some of our experience and help you to set up everything in a way where you'll be able to either start your own small distribution or just manage your distributors that you're kind of working with, depending on your business model.
So if you guys want to, so that you can scan that code, it goes to their link tree, which I just pasted in the chat here. This is a cool offer, the 2 months free of their platform. I'm telling you, if you go in there, you'll see what I'm talking about, because like, number one, you can just like see what all the stores are. And if you're just trying to like figure out what your approach is, like they have all that stuff just in their software. So that would have saved me a lot of time. I'm trying to figure out who to even try to call on. Plus, like if you're actually going for it with self-distribution, hard to imagine better software to actually figure out how to do that, because you don't want to try to recreate what they've done.
Yeah, it took a lot of time,
and it's not expensive. It's like affordable stuff also. So highly recommend that. Yeah, link is in the chat here if anybody wants to check it out. Reminder, all these slides are going to get emailed to you. Thank you, SimplyDepo. Thank you, Mac. Thank you, Brian. This is amazing information. And just don't be afraid of trying to pitch the chains also. You can meet them at the shows. They will talk to you. They're nice people. Citarella, like Wilson, the Fairway team. Glenn, if you can listen to him on the Startup CPG podcast. A lot of people have listened to him and reached out and actually got distribution. So that's a pro tip for you guys. And, meet them with us at the shows. They are accessible. Like, some New York City buyers are not always the best, like, at emailing you back. They're, busy New Yorkers, but like get in front of them at the trade shows. You can make it happen. But just to understand the differences between the stores, because not all the chains are really high moving ones. So you wouldn't want to like throw too much support behind some of them and commit to doing all this stuff for ones that are lower velocity. All right. Any last words, Brian, Mac, anyone else?
Thank you for having me. This has been a blast.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, everybody. See you all soon.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye now.